right, welcome back. We need to do one more thing before we start 3D printing. I apologize. Right now, the magnet's going to hold the lid on really tightly. It's going to be hard to get off. So we're going to build in a little chamfer to let us kind of pry it apart. I'll show you how to do that. First, I'm going to do the chamfer on the base. So I'm going to turn the lid off, and I'm going to come up here to modify, and I'm going to do, create, modify chamfer right there. And I'm going to click right here. It says tangent chain faces. I don't want to select all the faces, so I'm going to turn this feature off and then just collect this one line right there. And I'm going to chamfer it in 1.5 millimeters. That looks perfect. And I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to turn the base off and turn the lid on. And I'm going to chamfer this one edge as well. I'm going to do 1.5 millimeters, enter, turn the base back on, and now you can see you've got this little groove here where you can kind of stick your fingers and pry them apart. So I think that will be really helpful, so that's why we did that. All right, now we're ready to 3D print. So here's what we need to do. We've got to create a file called an STL or 3MF file. That's a surface file that the 3D printer software uses to create all of the commands for the printer to follow. So to do that, it's super easy. So I'm going to close my sketch folder here and close my construction folder. We go to each of our bodies. So we right click on the lid and we come down here to save as mesh. The format that we're going to use is 3MF. Now before we do this, actually cancel, make sure that your document settings are in millimeters. The next program is going to expect things in millimeters. If you send it over in inches or whatever, it's going to cause issues you have to figure out. So the best thing to do is just modify this, change it to millimeters. Nothing will change about your model. It will just change the settings for the units. All right, once you have that done, right click on lid, save as mesh, 3MF. You can use 3MF or STL or OBJ. I like 3MF. I think it's a nice model. Hit the refinement to high. For this, there's lots of little intricate shapes in it, so we want to capture lots of detail. And then we can also click on preview mesh if you want to. It'll probably slow your computer down quite a bit, but this is what it's going to actually send. It sends all of these surface triangles to the next software program. So that's what we're saving. If we go like low, you can see it just has fewer of those triangles. So you get less of those features, less detail in it. So I'm gonna click back to high. And then I'm gonna click OK. It's gonna ask me where do I wanna save it. You're gonna save this to your folder on the flash drive. I'm gonna save mine to earbuds, and yeah, I'm gonna do lid video version. And then save it. And it's super simple. The next thing we do is we right click on base, we go down to save as mesh, and 3MF, high, everything checks out, click OK, and I'm going to do base, and I'm going to call mine video version, that way I know which ones are which, and I'm going to hit save. Awesome. All of our work in Fusion is done. I'm going to Control S for save. Click OK. I'm going to close this down. It's going to upload some stuff, which is super nice. I'm going to come down here to the search bar, and let me close this window out as well. Need that open. I'm going to type in Prusa, and I'm looking for Prusa Slicer, not G-code viewer or anything else, but Prusa Slicer. This is the program that's going to take our model and slice it into layers so the 3D printer can print it. That's why it's called a slicer. All right, so once this opens up, your settings should be over here. You should choose 0.2 quality. The thicker or the bigger this number is, the thicker the layers are and the less detail you have. 0.2 is a really good layer height. The 0.05 and 0.07 are really small layer heights. They oftentimes fail in printing. They're really hard to get to work. We don't ever want to use those. 0.1 is the smallest I've gotten to, but you only really need that if you're printing out like a small character or something with a face with lots of features. 0.2 quality is great to use. It's the one I always go to. I actually use 0.3 most of the time, and my shapes are simple. because it is a much faster print because there's fewer layers. So we'll use 0.2 for this one. Your filament should be generic PETG. The printer should be original Prusa i3. If it's not and you need help setting those things, just ask and I'll help you. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is go to over here to File and do Import and STL. I'm gonna go and find where I put that. So I think mine's in the Downloads folder, Earbuds, yep. And I'm gonna do the base first, doesn't really matter. It's gonna import the base in. And then right away I'm gonna go File, Import, STL, and bring the lid in. Awesome. Notice how it put them on top of each other. Well, this would be a terrible way to 3D print this. So what I'm going to do is up here at the top, there's an auto arrange button. Click on it, it'll separate them. Now, I don't actually want to print this one in this way. This is how I model it in Fusion. But if you flip it over, you can see it would be printing all of this inside surface across air. And that's going to give me a really sloppy print. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually flip this over. To do that is a tool over here that says Place on Face. So I'm going to click on this tool and I'm going to say, you know what? I can put it on this one. I can click here and try and print that. But you can see that's probably going to give me a terrible print. I could try this one. All right, another terrible print. I could try this little face right there. Right? That's not a good way to print. The best way to print on this one is probably going to be on this face. Right? And now you can see, so I'm going to click out somewhere else, and you can see now that, okay, this is probably the best way. It's going to work one layer up, adding plastic on top of itself. Okay, so now I'm going to auto arrange this. Ooh, I messed around too much. I'm going to Control Z because I was screwing around with all these sides and it got everything wonky. All right, now I'm going to redo that. I'm going to click on the one I want to flip. I'm going to click here and just click on this side. Awesome. Now I've got them side by side, both sides flat down. And you can see this is why we did the chamfer instead of the roundovers, because now it can build plastic on top of itself as it moves outward. Okay, that looks great. I think we're ready to slice. So once you have everything positioned and on the right, the printable faces, you're just going to click Slice Now. And it's going to go through some work to create all the different layers that you can play with. And it's getting close to this being done. Slicing finished. Okay, and once it's done, this information will pop up. So this tells you I'm using 34 grams of filament. It's going to be 11 meters. So a meter is like almost like a yard. So 11 yards of filament. And it's going to cost 97 cents to print this. So that's pretty good. That's not too expensive. It's going to take us 2 hours and 52 minutes to print it. So that gives us lots of great information down here. Stealth modes means like it's a extra quiet mode, and it just costs us 1 minute to be a little extra quiet. I'm not going to print in stealth mode. You can if you'd like. All right, so now we've got this slice. We want to look for potential errors. So we're looking for places where the 3D printer is going to print something over air and not work. To do that, I'm going to use the up-down arrow keys on my keyboard, and I'm going to hit the down arrow. And you can see as I do that, it's going to march down a layer every time. Now notice inside here, this is called the gyroid infill pattern, and it has all these, like this red part in here is the infill part. So the printer goes around and prints these outside two edges and then prints this infill material to make it strong on the inside without using much. You can think of like a cardboard box having the corrugated like waves on the inside to make it stronger. Same thing with this, same concept here. And what I'm looking for is any pieces of plastic that are overhanging out over nothing. And it looks pretty good to me. And if I come in here and I zoom in on this edge here, notice how, I can tip it a little bit, yeah. Notice how this layer is out over that layer, but not by much. It can hold that, so it's still on top of the layer below it. So that all looks pretty good. So yeah, I think it's gonna print just great. One more thing I can tell here too is if I come up here on this bar up here, I can see there's 75 layers, and that's pretty cool. All right, I think that's it. We're ready to rock and roll. So now what we need to do is go find a printer, grab the SD card out of it. So choose a printer, what color you want to print, and bring that card back over here. I'll do the same. Okay, so I chose the pink filament printer. I grabbed the SD card out of it, and now I'm going to put the SD card into the computer. And when I do that, two things will happen. One is it's going to bring up this folder showing me what's on the card. And I can see I can delete anything in here except the HAZA folder. Leave the HAZA folder alone. But if there's extra stuff in here, I can just right click on them and delete them, or I can just leave them. Doesn't really matter. And then I'm just going to close out this window. And notice the second thing that happened is that Prusa brought up, instead of just export G code here, there's this little flash drive SD card thing here. That's the button I want to press. Click on that button. And I'm going to name this thing, and I'm going to name it something that makes sense. It says base video version. I'm going to actually call this earbud case. That way I know what it is when I go to do it. Awesome. I'm going to leave this other stuff here. This tells me my layer height is 0.2. My material type is PETG. The printer is the MK3S printer. And then the time it takes to print is 2 out of 52 minutes. All the information is nice to have. So I'm going to hit save. Once it's done saving, it's going to pop up this little symbol down here, and this allows you to eject the SD card safely. Don't just pull SD cards out of the computers. We want to eject them first. So that ejects it. It is now successful, and you can undo this. Take this card over and 3D print it. Remember to clean the print bed. If you don't clean the print bed, your print is going to probably break off in the middle and fail. Clean the print bed with alcohol. There's little spray bottles over there. If you need help with the rest of the process, ask me, ask someone else who's done it before. We will help you. Have fun. Great job today.